Hello my wildlings and welcome back to Turnabout in the Fast Lane. In the last episode I had presented some evidence specifically for Nick's testimony, and I was just about to discuss it even further, which we're going to get on with right now.
Oh, statement?
According to Mr. Fox, Flash was out cold when he arrived back at his house. And when Mr. Fox left, Flash was sound asleep on the sofa. How could he have killed anyone if he wasn't even awake?
You mean to say the defendant was asleep at the time of the murder?
That is correct, Your Honor. If our client was unconscious at the time of the murder, then the whole premise of the case is faulty. Exactly. It's what Apollo said. My client was out drinking. That is something I cannot deny, since I saw it myself. But he drank so much that he ended up falling unconscious as Mr. Fox took him home. And he was still that way when he got home and was placed on the sofa. And he was still that way when Finnick left him alone too. Which means, well, someone else must have taken the car, right? So Flash couldn't possibly be the killer. Oh dear. Couldn't be the killer. Fraulein, that is a premature end to our concert, yeah? Not when there is so much more room to discuss. Huh? What is Clavier talking about? Athena... Flash was asleep, he couldn't be the killer. Well, we know that, but that's just a basis to build our case on. You didn't think it was the end of the trial, did you? You'll still have much to learn about the courtroom, I'm afraid. Jadak. I have no idea what that word actually means or if I've pronounced it correctly, so I apologize. I am more than happy to teach. Damn it. Also not sure if that's actually a word or not. I feel like it's not. So the defense claims that because the defendant was asleep when Mr. Fox saw him, he is not the killer. And that the defendant was not conscious the entire incident.
It seems plausible to me.
Plausible, Judge, but not for certain. There was still a gap in time from Mr. Fox's departure and the murder. And the gap in time before the car was taken, and where the defendant had nobody to verify his condition. And without that verification, it is very much possible that the defendant woke up in that time. And Fraulein, without concrete evidence that he was truly unconscious during the murder, he cannot be cleared of the crime. Yeah, well, it's a start. We're getting there.
So it's possible that a defendant woke up after Mr. Fox left him at his home, which means he cannot be cleared of suspicion without evidence to support the defence's assertion. This is quite the conundrum.
Judge, you should also know that the witness's performance is yet to conclude. That was the warm-up act. Now it is time for the main event.
The main event, you say? Oh, does that mean she's going to sing for us? I would love to hear a song. It has been a very long time since I've heard any music, actually. I know that the kids these days have their book 3s, and their the U-tabs, or the spoot iffy, but, well, personally I prefer, like, a classical gramophone myself. I'm not into this technological nonsense. Just, well, I mean, I say gramophone, personally I just sort of spin the vinyl disc on one finger, and then I use this one very long nail that I have on this one hand, and I place it on the vinyl, and then as it spins, I open my mouth and the music comes out. You know, just as everyone can do, right? I'm not the only one. Why are you looking at me like that? Oh, well, moving on. What might that be?
More testimony, I would guess. We have yet to discuss the motive of this crime, the motivation behind it all. I think it's time to enlighten the audience.
Dear witness, would you please shed some light on the culprit's motive?
Very well, I shall testify. The defendant had a very compelling motive, and it's not the first case like this I've seen. As tragic as it may seem, his motive is as follows. Witness testimony. A motive of the heart. We have already discussed that the culprit's drunken state, and his reasons for such depression are tied to his motive. Namely, he and the victim were previously dating. But the day of the murder, Miss Swinton had broken up with the culprit over the phone, and so he drank his misery away. But as he became more drunk, his self-control faded away. He was then overcome with anger and vengeance, so he murdered her in cold blood. That's the motive, plain and simple. A broken heart mixed with alcohol. A dangerous mix indeed.
Oh my, what a terrible set of circumstances. It's like a reverse Romeo and Juliet.
I'm not so sure that it is. I mean, in the story of Romeo and Juliet, it's like... I mean, spoilers for anyone who doesn't know this 100-year-old Shakespearean play, but it's like the two of them loved each other, but they couldn't be together because they were like different from different warring families. And so Juliet had this great idea. She was like, I know, I'm gonna pretend to die by drinking this poison thing that makes it look like I'm dead, but really I'm just asleep. Shh, don't tell anyone except you. You need to go tell Romeo so that he knows that I'm not actually dead, and then we can run away at the end of it and be together forever, and it'll all be romantic and lovely and happy and nice. And then Romeo didn't get the message, so Romeo's like, oh no, she's dead and I loved her. And he comes along and he's like, oh, look at her, she's definitely dead, that's a dead body there. And so he stabs himself with a knife right next to her and then dies next to her. And then literally seconds later she wakes up because, you know, dramatic timing and all that jazz. And she's like, oh no, no one told him. No. Shit, I guess I'll kill myself too. Picks up the same knife and then stabs herself, and they die in each other's arms, and it's romantic and tragic and horrible and a bit weird when you, like, start to think about it a little more deeply. I mean, they killed each other after they met, like, barely a week or two ago, possibly even less, and then there's also the whole thing of them being quite young at the time. Like, this was written in Shakespearean times, so young is... yeah, moving swiftly on from that. So the reverse would be like they're both allowed to be together, but they don't want to be. So I guess Juliet pretends to be alive by drinking a potion, but is actually dead. So Romeo, who is also dead at first, sees this as like, oh, well, if she's alive now, I'll be alive now, and then he's alive. And then Juliet dies again, or wakes up from being alive to being dead, and then she's like, Oh no, my sweet love is alive. I guess I better be alive too. And then they're both alive, but they still don't love each other. They're just alive now, and they're being forced to be together. I guess instead of not being allowed to. This is far too complicated, and maybe one day I'll write that out. Except honestly, I probably won't, because that would be silly. Kind of funny, though. But I digress. That's all the time we have for in this episode, and we'll be continuing along with what will probably be a cross-examination in the next episode. And I'll see you all then. Goodbye, good night, and good luck.